Today, prosecutor Evan Hammond told the jury that this case will be difficult, not because of the facts, but because of what the jury might hear or see. Now, again, we want to warn you, what you hear may be graphic. The state was the first to give its opening statement. During his opening statement, prosecutor Hammond talked about the strangulation aspect of the case. He says Carmack tried to strangle Skylee with her bare hands, but after that failed, she used a pair of jeans and wrapped them around her neck. The state also mentioned that when Indiana State Police interviewed Amanda Carmack, they administered a polygraph exam. According to the state, the questions asked were, did you call Skylee to go missing? Are you involved? Do you know where she is? Amanda Carmack answered no to all of these questions and failed the test. When Skylee's body was found, the state said air fresheners, dryer sheets, and candles were used to mask the smell. Also, things in the shed were piled on top of the plastic trash bag that contained her body. According to Carmack's defense attorney, David Payne, this was not an act of murder because it wasn't premeditated. He says his client was suffering from depression and migraines that got worse a couple of weeks before the killing. He says this is why she can't remember many details about the killing. He added that this isn't a murder, but a tragic case where the stepmother snapped and it's manslaughter. He also says his client isn't guilty on any other charges. Now, around 4:30 today, the council did take a recess and they will reconvene tomorrow around 8:30. We will continue to update you as more information develops. From Grant County, Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News. Today, the state has called on 4 witnesses. So far, they include a Gas City police officer, an Indiana State police trooper, and a supervisor for the Department of Child Services. And currently on the stand is a detective who investigated this case. Now, during DCS's testimony, she said during the search for Skylee, she interviewed 2 other children under Carmack's care. She said when interviewing them, what stood out to her was how emotional the children got at the sound of Carmack's name. She claimed that one of the children cried, shook, and even broke out into hives. Carmack's defense attorney did object the statement, but Judge Spritzer overruled. Yesterday, we told you about opening statements. The state prosecutor mentioned how gruesome the details are in this case. As for the defense, he claims that his client committed manslaughter and not murder because it wasn't premeditated. He also says she isn't guilty on any other charges. Now, Carmack is in the courtroom right now. However, we aren't allowed in. We have been watching via a live stream, so we can't really look at her emotions or her facial expressions or body language. Now, I also did mention that new details did come out in the opening statements. If you want a recap, visit thestoryonwayne.com. Also, tonight at 5 and 6, I'll break down what the detective had to say. Zurk and Alyssa, one of the 5 witnesses that took the stand today was a detective that worked the case. Now, the biggest thing that came up during his testimony was the consent to search form. Again, we want to warn you at home, what you hear may be triggering or graphic. Now, here is Amanda Carmack entering court today. This was the only time we got to see her because we weren't allowed inside. During one of the detective's testimony, he explained that when Skylee's body was found, it was in 3 layers of plastic bags with dryer sheets and it was in a wooden trunk. During the cross-examination, the defense continued to argue that this was not murder and it's manslaughter because Amanda Carmack snapped. Defense attorney David Payne argued that there is no proof Amanda Carmack was trying to cover up the body because it wasn't in a hidden area. The state's witness fired back and said he noticed candles were being lit in the shed after the investigation started. The defense argued and asked if Carmack was trying to hide the body, why didn't she dispose of it? The detective responded saying the house was under 24-hour surveillance after Skylee was reported missing and there was no way Amanda Carmack could remove the body. Police did have a search warrant. However, the defense questioned why wasn't there a consent to search. The detective admitted that neither Amanda Carmack or Skylee's father were asked for consent. However, he said with the search warrant, verbal consent from the owners is not necessary during the process. Now, another witness that took the stand today was Indiana State Police detective who actually interviewed Amanda Carmack. Tonight at 6, we'll break down the 4-hour interview. Live from Grant County's courthouse, Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News. Dirk and Alyssa, the interview took about 4 hours. Now, at this time, Carmack was not under arrest or a suspect. Now, here's where she entered the courtroom today. We were able to get a shot of her entering, and this was the only time we got to see her because we weren't allowed in the courtroom. During the recording of the interview, part of the conversation geared towards the day before Skylie went missing. Carmack claimed Skylie was in trouble for lying and stealing. When asked, "Where do you think Skylie is at this time?" Carmack cried and paused for nearly a minute. She eventually said she thinks she is at the park. The detective also asked, "Do you think Skylie is afraid of you?" Carmack responded, "I do yell a lot." The detective started to push Carmack and said, "You were the last adult to see her. Was everything too much? Were you pushed over the edge? Did you just have enough?" The detective also told Carmack that if something happened, just tell police and they can help. The detective continued to press Carmack. Also, she also told the defendant no one saw Skylie leave the home that night. None of the neighbors' video surveillance showed Skylie leaving. During cross-questioning, attorney David Payne asked, was the detective truly empathizing with Carmack? And if so, then she could understand how a mother could snap. The detective also said when questioning Carmack didn't answer all questions, just a few with her head down. When asked, "Did you kill Skylie?" the detective said Carmack didn't respond. She just stared, didn't say no, didn't say anything, just stared. Now, after this, the court did take a recess and they are scheduled to be back tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. Like always, we will continue our coverage and update you as more information develops. If you need a recap of this case, visit this story on Wayne.com. Live from the Grant County Courthouse, Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News. This week, we told you about the polygraph exam that was administered to Carmack. Today, the sergeant who conducted the lie detector test took the stand. He said to pass the exam, a person has to score a +2. To fail the score has to be a -4. He said Carmack scored a -19. He mentioned that Carmack was telling him that Skylie was in trouble a week prior to the killing. According to his testimony, that day Carmack slapped Skylie and said she wished she didn't have to see her again. After that, Carmack went to smoke marijuana to calm down. Then she did some work in the shed and cooked dinner. The sergeant said Carmack didn't invite Skylie down for dinner, and after 8 that night, she reported her missing. During cross-examination, it was confirmed that Carmack had marijuana and alcohol in her system during the lie detector test. Defense attorney David Payne also asked if a lawyer was present when Carmack agreed to the lie detector test and during it. The sergeant said no. And another thing that was mentioned in court today was the letters Carmack wrote to her family after the confession. One of the letters was written directly to Skylie. Tonight at 6, I'll tell you what she wrote. Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News.
Coverage live in the newsroom tonight. Bree, who else took the stand today?
Alyssa, the sergeant who Carmack confessed to. Now, he was also the officer who found Skylie's body in the shed. Now, during his testimony, the state played Carmack's confession tape. Police said that Carmack walked to the police station voluntarily. After a couple of hours, she cried and confessed. She told police where the body was, and police were able to locate Skylie's remains. While police were out searching for the body, Carmack wrote letters to her family members. She wrote a letter to Skylie's father and each of the children, including Skylie. Skylie's letter was the last to be read out loud in court today. In the letter, Carmack apologized to her deceased stepdaughter. She said she messed everything up. The letter also mentioned Carmack stating that she fell in love with Skylie and her freckles the day she met her. She also wrote that she remembers them falling asleep together, watching movies, and how she wished they could go back to those days. She ended the note stating she will dream of Skylie for the rest of her life and that she loved her and she was sorry. Now, none of the surviving children or Skylie's father received a letter because it was taken into evidence. Now, we do have a full breakdown of the trial on our website. Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News. Alyssa guilty on all counts, including murder. Now, the jury went back to deliberate around 1:13 this afternoon and came back a little after 4 o'clock. Now, the trial isn't over just yet. Monday, they will come back and have phase 2. This will be when they decide if she gets life without parole. Earlier today, Kevin Carmack, Skylee's father, took the stand. He tried to hold back tears but got extremely emotional when recapping the events that took place leading up to Skylee's death. He is a truck driver and was on the road the day Amanda Carmack claimed Skylee went missing. He said he was 650 miles away when he got a text from Amanda Carmack saying something was wrong. Later, he found out that Skylee was missing. When he finally made it back home, he said he didn't sleep. He just searched for his child. He said Amanda Carmack never left the house to help, and he continued his search for days without much sleep. He said he was keeping hope, but when the police called him to come into the police department, he still had one last shred of hope that his daughter was found. Instead, he was informed that Amanda Carmack admitted to killing Skylee and her remains were in the shed. Now, we did see Amanda Carmack's defense attorney, Dave Payne, coming out of court today. I did ask him for a comment, but he said no comment. I also saw the prosecutors and asked them for a comment. They say they will comment after the trial is over. Reporting live from Grant County's courthouse, Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News. Earlier today, defense attorney Dave Payne said that the life without parole sentence was a train moving at full speed and it's his job to stop it. However, the state prosecutor said that it needs to keep going because Amanda Carmack caused it. And after a couple of hours of deliberating, the jury agreed. Amanda, do you agree with the decision? After learning her fate, Amanda Carmack walked out the courthouse with her head down and declining to comment.
Kind of taken aback just based on what evidence had came out during the trial. It was definitely an emotionally charged case.
Life without parole for killing her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Skylee Carmack, is the sentence the jury decided.
Ecstatic, relieved. We've been waiting for this.
Ashley Lopez was a neighbor of Skylee. She says she remembers the day she went missing and something about Amanda was always off.
But I was heartbroken because I was hoping I was wrong. I was hoping that we were going to find her. I was just hoping she ran away.
She says waiting for this day was an emotional roller coaster. After the mistrial in 2020, she is happy justice has finally been served for young Skylee Carmack.
The train kept going, so thank you to the jury, thank you to the prosecuting attorneys. They did an amazing job. Just so grateful for this outcome.
Now, the sentencing will be September 15th, and like always, we will keep you updated. Now, for a full breakdown of this trial, visit the story on Wayne.com. From Grant County's courthouse, Brianna Brownlee, Wayne 15 News.